we're going to be taking a look at 50 secrets and Easter eggs in Pokémon Legends ZA that you may or may not have known about. So let's get started. After you finish the main story of Pokémon Legends ZA, you may not have noticed, but the opening screen for the menu at the beginning of the game actually changes from being black to instead being a white screen. Next up, we're going to head for two interesting things found in Emma's office. First of all, we have the sort of blackboard behind her, the detective board, which has a lot of different references in it, but the two that stood out to me most is a picture of Crobat that is supposedly supposed to be in the city in some sort of cave or something, which there are no Crobats in this game. I don't think you could even get a Zubat, which is interesting. But the second one, though, is there is a picture of a Lapras that looks kind of like the picture of Nessie or the Loch Ness Monster, which of course is somewhat what Lapras is based around, right? It's based on a dinosaur, but also, you know, Loch Ness Monster, so on and so forth. You get it. So that's the first one. The other two things we find in the office is actually two pictures, and one of them is, of course, of Looker, the man who started this bureau and ran it for the longest time and then gave it over to, of course, Emma to take over. But the other picture is of ZeroSec, one of the people who actually worked for Team Flare in the story of X and Y, and it seems based on this at least that he seems to have joined the Bureau, or at least worked with them in some way, shape, or form after this point. Otherwise, why exactly would he be on the wall? Unless, of course, Emma put the picture up herself for other reasons. It just seems a little strange, but yeah, he's on the wall too, so cool little reference. There's a really cool cutscene in Legends ZA, which only happens in a very specific circumstance, and this is when you specifically, towards the end of the game, so spoiler alert, when you are climbing up the ladder, the human ladder, with the help of Corbo and the Rust Syndicate. Well, if you jump down, you can have a special interaction with Corbo where he will basically tell you to go back up again, but you can fall down a second time, and then he'll get even more pissed off at you. But if you fall down a third time, he'll get extremely pissed off to the point that he basically threatens you, and he's gonna have a showdown with you at Hotel Z if you keep doing it. So yeah, it's kind of funny that this is just like a random cutscene that exists. I do like when they add in these sort of things in these games, just small cutscenes that most people will not even see. It just adds a lot of, let's say, flavor to the experience. Yo, real quick before we continue, this video is actually brought to you by a game called Illustrals Awaken. Yes, it's actually made by our lovely friend A-Drive, who is a content creator that's been making Pokemon videos forever now. Well, guess what? He's creating a game where, imagine if you took Pokemon, Zelda, and Octopath Traveler, and you made them have a baby together. And that is what we have with Illustrals Awaken. It is a 2.5D pixel art monster capturing RPG built by the same team behind the Illustrals TCG, and it's honestly one of the coolest indie projects out there right now, especially if you're a fan of the monster capturing genre. In the game, you bond with elemental spirits and battle literal gods. That's not an over-exaggeration, and explore a massive world with titans and temples full of puzzles, secrets, and literally everything you could possibly imagine. Also, the game runs on this whole unique spirit point system where your health is also your energy, so every move you make has a risk and reward with it. And right now, they've got a Kickstarter live that you guys can go check out and grab the alpha and beta access and exclusive in-game items, as well as possibly, if you want to, becoming an NPC or even a caster in the final game. But it's only open until November 7th, so if you want to back it, do it before it's too late. You guys can click my unique link in the description or the pinned comment down below to check the game out and support a project with serious potential, but also a game that's made by somebody from our community here on YouTube. All right, that's that. Now let's get back into the rest of the video. The next one I'm going to include on this list is probably going to be the weirdest one, but I'm going to include this as a reference because I think it's funny. Emma does the Naruto run. Yes, if you ever watched Naruto, you know how they run with Naruto with their head, like arms, you know, flailing behind them. Well, she literally does that run when you first meet her, when she runs away from the situation. I don't know if this was intentional or what the deal was, but it is extremely funny. There are several characters in this game, like as you walk around the world, that will make references to other places, and one of these is actually somebody talking about their next destination being to head to Galar to do some Dynamaxing. So yes, there's also some leaks that are connected to this, because we have heard leaks that the next Legends game is going to be based on Galar, which is a little odd, I'm not gonna lie, but maybe this is supposed to be like some early connections already that they're making from here, so you can, you know, see the references already happening. Another cool little detail is if you go back to Hotel Z again in the game and return to your room, you can find a Pokeball as well as a letter addressed to you by AZ. And this Pokeball contains the Pokemon Lucario, which was apparently given to AZ by a very special trainer. We know for a fact this is most likely Corinna because the original trainer on the Lucario is Corinna, so we end up still getting that Lucario, which is kind of cool, kind of a cool little reference, a nice little connection in that way. And also the letter contains a few details again about Galar. Apparently AZ was there and witnessed the darkest day in Galar, which is, I think, historically like one of the most important aspects of Galar, which means we might see that in a Legends Galar game. There is a Ghost Girl reference in the game. You guys may remember for X and Y, the Ghost Girl that walks by and says, "You're not the one," and all that. Well, there is a reference to that. Another Ghost Girl in Lumiose can now be found referencing the words of that one from X and Y, which is kind of a cool little callback. I do sort of wish that we did have a Ghost Girl moment in the game. As far as I'm aware, there isn't one. I don't think any of the side quests necessarily do the same thing or have the same vibe, but there is obviously a reference, so at least that's cool. Also, chilling on benches in the game is actually one of the best methods to increase friendship for your entire team. Of course, if you have a singular Pokemon, you can go to a cafe and that will increase friendship at a steady pace. But if you use benches, you can increase friendship for all your Pokemon, your entire team, which is pretty neat. There's a random woman who talks about wanting to be reincarnated as a Pokemon, most likely a reference to Mystery Dungeon, where it's kind of implied that you, well, are reborn as a Pokemon. I mean, that's what the game sort of implies when you play it. So yeah, kind of a cool little reference as well. And speaking of more references, there's a connection here to O-Powers. You guys remember those things from, X and Y Gen 6? Yeah, they're referenced here too as to why they're not in the game, which is really interesting and strange at the same time. This one might also be a possible reference to Ash Ketchum. This kid has a Pikachu and he's dressed up in a very interesting and peculiar way, which makes him look a little bit like Ash. We cannot forget about the Power of Science guy. Yes, there is a Power of Science guy you can find right outside of Mabel's lab. And again, he's just a reference. He's been here, I think, all the way since Red and Blue at this point. There is a special store in this game called the Film Fan Store, and this one actually sells a interesting t-shirt variant. This one is called F00, which is a direct reference to, you guys may remember it, the Pokestar Studios location from Black and White. That's literally one of the robots that you could do little fake battles for the movies way back in Black and White, which is really, really cool that they actually referenced it here. Next, we're going to take a look at a bunch of references you can find down in Lysander's lab. And I'm going to start off first things first, which is these whiteboards. On these whiteboards, there's a lot of little doodles and stuff. One of them looks like they're maybe trying to reference a Helioptile getting like some sort of mega potentially. But the biggest one for me is there's actually the party icons. Yes, the party icons from Generation 1's Red and Blue are on these boards. You can literally see them on multiple different boards, and I just thought it was a really cool little detail that they had this in there. I don't know, just thought I would mention it because I thought it was really, really interesting and just a small little detail that stood out to me. But yeah, definitely one worthwhile to mention. Another detail is that if you come to one of the rooms towards the end of the area, there's a giant rock. Now, this rock is a reference directly to one of the rocks from Geosense Town. If you interact with it, it even says this stone was once standing in line at Route 10 all the way to the ruins in Geosense Town. Basically, these stones apparently behave in mysterious manners. They usually emit energy, but when the ultimate weapon is activated, that reverses. They then begin to absorb energy from Pokemon attached to them. So, very interesting, and I do wonder if this rock is going to come back, because we do know that for the DLC for Legends ZA, there is leaked information that we are going to be finding a special Pokemon down here in Lysander's lab, specifically that being Mewtwo. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see if anything comes from that, but I just thought it was a cool little detail. But there's not just that. There is another interesting detail down here, and that detail has got to be the cell where they kept AZ. Yes, his cell is found here. I know it's a bit strange to say, but it's literally here. It's not even like an exaggeration. It's literally found in this area, which I thought was really interesting that it would be down here as well. A bit odd, to say the least. Like, definitely a bit strange. It's also really in the dark, so you can barely tell it's there, but it is there. So yeah, just thought it was an interesting thing to mention and bring up as well. But we will be back down here again eventually, right? Especially with the text telling us with the ultimate weapon will unleash the power of Kalos legendary Pokemon. That weapon will be powered by living Pokemon rather than by the life energy they contain. So yeah, it does feel like things will happen again down here eventually. Now, Kanari as a brand new character obviously is a reference to, well, streamers and somewhat probably Hatsune Miku, but not as much as you'd realize. There's actually a lot of art in her, like, little room where she does her streaming, if we want to call it that. Basically, if you look at her setup, she's got a whole, you know, YouTuber streamer setup, but there is some interesting artwork. One of the artworks of her looks just like this artwork from a song by Deco27 called The Vampire, which, I mean, looks just like that, and it features Hatsune Miku. There's also another piece of art of her, which is directly referencing Project Voltage, I think it's called, from the song Volt Tackle, and this was actually a project that's being made in collaboration between Pokemon and, I guess, Hatsune Miku and the, you know, the group that runs that and all that. So yeah, kind of a cool little detail. And there's actually a lot of music related stuff which we can go into right here. Speaking of music references, there's just so much stuff in here. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, we can just go through some of the stuff that's meant to be in the files and in the game. For example, there are special arrangements for the trainer theme Day and Night, Pokemon Center's Lumio City Day and Night, Sycamore's Pokemon Lab, which is now Mabel's Lab, Trainer's Eyes Meet for the maid in the restaurants, Glittering Cave in the sewers is used, Team Flare appears, Battle Team Flare music is in the game, which has arrangements being used for some of the songs. Eternal Prison, AZ's theme, which is used in Hotel Z, Kiseki, Looker's Bureau, which is a combination of Emma and Looker's themes. Emma's theme is in the game. Berry Picker, Battle Spot, Mystery Gift from Scarlet and Violet seems to be reused for the mystery gifts. Battle Zygarde 100%, new remix of X and Y Zygarde's themes. And then, of course, there is just some stuff that's exactly the same, like Dark Skies, Battle Xerneas Vettel, AZ's theme, Sushi High Roller, Boutique, Koi Fur Clips, Hotel Rishime, and Battle Mewtwo is in the files, I think, as far as I'm aware. But there's some Easter eggs, like, for example, the game actually plays the X and Y Friends music in the camera when you use it, and also plays the beginning of Tower of Mastery, which is, I guess, happens when you get the, I think the quest obtained a Megastone. So when getting a Megastone after the Rogue Mega fight for the first time, it plays the beginning of Tower of Mastery, which makes sense, right? It fits. So yeah, loads of music references. I wouldn't be able to literally explain each of them here because that on its own would probably be like an hour-long video. I'm not even gonna lie. Next, we're going to take a look at, by far, I would say, the largest amount of references in probably any game we've ever gotten in one place, and that is the Lumiose Museum. This place, when I say filled with references, I mean majority of this video is probably going to be this one location. So let's get started with the first thing. So right as you enter, you will literally see a map of Hisui. Yes, that's the first thing that you see on the TV behind the receptionist workers. So that's instantly one reference found right there to, of course, the Hisui region from Legends Arceus. Then we have a ton of Pokemon versions of actual real-life art. So we have, for example, Lady with a Unicorn. Literally is what it's called. It's from 1505 to 1506 by Raphael, and you guys can see what they went for here. It's definitely something. It's different. I mean, they tried to do something like, you know, similar, as in, I think this art is supposed to sort of be a representation of somebody who wanted to have a depiction of them holding a rare animal or creature, which doesn't really exist. You know, there's no real unicorns. Gotta burst your bubble there. And if you read the actual description of this artwork of the guy with the Mew here, you will notice that it's the same thing. He wanted to be drawn with a mythical Mew to get more renown and be remembered more, you know, like that, except he literally just requested it. He never actually had that, so it's kind of funny. But it doesn't end there. Then, of course, we have this one, which, I mean, this is so freaking cool. You can instantly tell what it is. We have, in this case, a Diancie, and it's drawn to look like the girl with a pearl earring. So yeah, that's literally what it's supposed to look like from Johannes Vermeer. So I don't know. It's pretty neat that they actually did this, and it doesn't end there. There's still two really cool ones. That being the one called Woman with a Parasol by Claude Monet, and it's a Monet, so you already know if you've ever watched any movie about them stealing paintings, it's always a Monet. I don't know why, but it's always the case. And here instead what we see is a Serena with a, I think it's a Cacturn or whatever in the background coming up. So yeah, it's clearly based on that. Again, massive shout out to the Japanese creator who actually noticed this first. Sao7 actually noticed these first and shared it online. This is also where I'm getting the information from. It's pretty cool though. And the final one we have here is Madame Georges Carpentier and Her Children by Pierre-Auguste Renoir. So this one, same thing, except we have just a bunch of like, what is like Gothiatella and like whatnot chilling around a sofa, very similar with a Mightyena and whatnot in in the areas there too. You can even see some extra Pokemon in the background if you pay attention. You can even see, I think, an Ice Cube, whatever, in the background, Florges and whatnot. You see a few different Pokemon in the back if you just pay attention to it, which is pretty neat and just kind of like an attention to detail that really stands out. There's a beautiful drawing of a seaside. Now, this one just says it's a piece of key work in the rise of realist movement. It depicts a keen accuracy, the scenery in an area near Coumarine City in Kalos. So Coumarine City is mentioned here, which is pretty neat. Then we can also see a courtyard of the Perfume Palace. Of course, we don't get to visit it in this game, but in this drawing, we get to see a few interesting things. Now, actually, the viewer who hit me up and mentioned, hey, there is an interesting little Oshawott-looking thing at the bottom there. Now, I said it's probably just an Oshawott. However, they said, hey, is that possibly like some version of Oshawott, some new type of Pokemon? You never actually know. I think it's just an Oshawott, but it's kind of cool to see the Perfume Palace, showcased as art in here too. It actually looks gorgeous. There's another thing as well related to the Perfume Palace, which is apparently this place was created by aristocrats who served the king and created a unique castle in their territories. This work is highly praised as a piece that captures that period in time. It looks like a gorgeous castle in the art. There's also this one painting, which as far as I can tell, it kind of looks like there's a drawing of Mew, sort of like right up here. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but that's at least what it looks like to me. And if you talk to it, it just says it captures the lives of Pokemon and farmers who live together with the land. Now again, I could be crazy, but it was painted 85 years ago and is regarded as an example of naturalism. But I don't know, man, looks like Mew to me. Then there's also a drawing that says it's a dark and narrow cave. The source of its airy light is a plant called luminous moss, of all things. It's part of a series depicting sceneries that inspired overseas artists while they were traveling in Kalos. So yes, the luminous cave, I'm most likely assuming, is what they're referencing here. Now, this one is by far the craziest one to me, at least in this section. This piece was long believed to have been a portrait of a king from 3,000 years ago, but painted by an artist who lived after his time. However, recent research has lent support to the theory that this painting is in fact depicts a descendant of the king's younger brother. From this, we can summarize that the royal line maintained a degree of power throughout the ages. Now, assuming this is supposed to be AZ or somebody related to him, does that mean we're going to see more related people to AZ in the story? I mean, I'm guessing this is the fella himself, unless this again is a relative like they're trying to suggest with the research they did. But yeah, it's kind of cool to see this as well. Now, this is by far one of my favorite little Easter eggs in the game. If you guys look at this drawing, it's a drawing of the Tower of Mastery, which stands at the north of Shalor City. Two strange stones were once discovered in this area, which are now thought to have been the first known Megastones and Keystone. However, if you pay attention to this drawing and zoom in, you will see in his beautiful 2013 chibi art style, Callum. Yes, the main character we play as in Pokemon X and Y is right there. His silhouette is right there. So if you played X and Y, this is going to be a really cool reference just to see that mentioned again. Almost, I mean, well over a decade at this point ago that this was first, that we first got to experience the game as him. And that's not the only reference to the actual tower itself. There's a few more drawings of the statue of the giant Megalocario from the Tower of Mastery. There's also an actual replica of it, seemingly. Not the real one, as far as we're aware. It's just a replica of it that's also here, as well as the city itself with the whole tower and everything on the outside. Which, by the way, this entire castle is actually based on a real castle that we can actually find in France itself, which is really cool. But yeah, again, just cool to see that all these little references to the place are right here. You can even see the actual top of the tower as well, where defeating the successor to Mega Evolution in a Pokemon battle atop a Tower of Mastery is how you would get it. So yeah, again, a lot of just cool little references, even the stairs they had to climb, just all of that is being referenced right here in this one spot in the museum. But that's not it though, there is still more. Now the second floor is where things get interesting. Now, first things first, on the right side of this place, we have the actual expedition flag. Yes, the Galaxy Expedition team flag is right here, and it also says that one story claims that this flag was meant to show that the Team Galaxy, a Galaxy team, was made up of people from different regions, so its design incorporates various elements, including Galarian letters. However, the truth of this tale remains unknown. The flag itself seems to have been made using threads from Pokemon. And not just that, there's also, of course, the venerated portraits. You guys will remember that these were were the ones we found inside of the Pearl Clan and Diamond Clan, which seem to depict our fellas Archie and Maxie from, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, which is really random. But yeah, they apparently represented the sun, sea, and land, but nothing concrete is known about their identities, which is curious to see if maybe the darkest day in Galar may see us actually encountering these fellas for real, because how did they end up there? Most likely time traveling in some way. And of course, in the middle, we have, Alder next to the other two. So again, these are in those games, so it's cool to see them as well. There's also an entire board of hairstyles of the time, which is really cool. Apparently, these are now available at the hairdresser in Jubilee City, the early settlement home to the Galaxy Acquisition team, which, yes, of course, is where we started in the game, right? And also, it is said that changing one's hair color was possible at this establishment, which, yes, you guys can see there's a bunch of cool little references. I kind of wondered if maybe some of these drawings we actually see on the wall, if any of these drawings may also be a reference to maybe employees that worked on the game. I haven't seen anybody confirm this as a yes or no, but apparently, yeah, it's the hairstyles from the game, which is it's just so cool, man, that all this is in here. But it doesn't end there, fellas. We have something more to take a look at. It is, of course, our old friend, the kimono belonging to, of course, Kamado, the commander of the Galaxy Acquisition team, is also here. Kimono uses many different types of threads and is ornately decorated, showing that much effort was put into its creation. Thus, it is assumed that kimono was quite costly, but it's unknown whether Kamado acquired it himself or it was given to him as a gift. The pattern provides evidence that Golduck could be found at the time the cloth was embroidered, because I guess they used Golduck skin? Oh, brother, ew, what the? Whoa, brother, this is a bit weird. But it doesn't end there. There's also a statue of the commander's armor, a suit of armor worn in battle by Kamado, the first commander of the Galaxy team. It is said to have come from the Galar region and bears a strong resemblance to the armor worn by Wickstrom, as the game actually suggests here that Wickstrom's ancestor may have been the ones who actually made the armor, an Elite Four member of the Kalos region's Pokemon League. When contacted for comment, Wickstrom said it was possible this armor was once one of several suits his ancestor gave to the Galarians, of all people. However, it is difficult to verify such claims given relations between Kalos and Galar during the era. This is also implying a war between Kalos and Galar, which would make sense because Galar is based on the UK, or England in this case, right? And of course, the other end of the spectrum, we have Kalos, which is based on France, and FYI, those two countries have had many a conflict in history. Next, we have the statues of Dialga and also Palkia. Yes, both can be found here, and right next to them, there is a giant mural of sorts, right, showing ancient Sinnoh hieroglyphs. And these hieroglyphs were used in ancient Sinnoh and are said to depict both common Pokemon and those that were objects of worship. Each glyph held multiple meanings, and they could be combined to create whole sentences, which, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at it, what do we actually see on here? Well, we see what looks to be a Darkrai, we see Cresselia, we see Arceus, we can also see what looks to be Dialga and Palkia, we can see the Lake Trio, we can see some of the Pokemon that we actually used for traversal, like Cleavor and whatnot, is in here too. Arcanine's Hisuian form is there too, Sneasler is there too, Hisuian Voltorb is there too, we got Basculegion, and several more Pokemon like that, but it doesn't end there. There's even more stuff at the bottom, like Manaphy, as well as Giratina, and seemingly the Regis. So it seems like a lot of references all in one single thing. Like in one space, we have so many different references. But oh boy, you guys thought we were done? Nah, there's more. Okay, next up, we have, of course, this is just crazy. But what we have right here is, of course, the formal attire, the outfit worn by one of the ancient Sinnoh people during their rituals, which is not true. We all know who this belongs to. Of course, this is the outfit worn by, well, I guess Volo when he went full-on, like, evil megalomaniac, right? When he tries to, like, attack us and all that. That's essentially what we're looking at right here. So, yeah, this is the outfit he wore. But the biggest detail here is apparently that this group worshipped the Pokemon Arceus as an almighty deity, and of course we already know that from his outfit. It is thought that they show their respect by mimicking Arceus' appearance and even reflected in the way that they style their hair. But that's not all. Apparently, the guy who donated this, the fella who gave it away, he apparently, as we can read right here, it was told that the person who wore this outfit donated it to the collection personally, which would imply that he's immortal. Apparently, he gazed a while at those sketches by Professor Laventon with his nostalgic air to it. So yes, it turns out that Volo, based on this, is immortal. At least that's the implication, which makes me wonder, man, how many immortal Pokemon trainers are there actually in the Pokemon world? It's kind of crazy. But it doesn't end there. We also have a few other drawings, like for example this one right here, which shows the ancient quarry. And his name would suggest the cave was used in ancient times as a stone quarry, and clean cuts of rock surface are signs of advanced techniques or possibly skilled command of Pokemon. Either way, the results are impressive even in this modern age. And right next to that one, we seem to have the Temple of Sinnoh, an artist's rendition of what the ruins known as the Spear Pillar would look like if restored. It is said that these ruins once housed 10 statues depicting Pokemon known as lords or ladies. However, the temple was severely damaged due to the battle between legendary Pokemon, with the statue also being destroyed. Records show that the name Spear Pillar was coined by the Survey Corps of the time. Again, so many references to the past game of Legends Arceus, and I really do hope that we're gonna get another Legends game that kind of completes the trio, because it would be really, really sick. Next up, we have a bunch of sketches that were drawn by Professor Laventon, because yeah, we cannot forget about our boy, of course, the man who essentially created the first Pokédex, right? And here we get to see some drawings of his. I think the first one here depicts a Abra, just chilling and vibing. We get some different areas. We get a Cricketune, we got some Roselias, a Starly, and we also got Pikachu, of course, Shinx, and we also have Cherim and whatnot chilling as well. So these are all artworks by him, which is kind of cool to see that that's all there too. And these were donated here by apparently Volo, or the person who gave Volo's armor. So again, very interesting to see. But it doesn't end there. We have every single Pokeball of the Hisui region, which is, I mean, dude, this is just so cool. Again, these were crafted, people of the time had to craft their own Pokeballs using apricorns and mineral tumblestones. Many varieties are said to have been crafted. So again, all the different Pokeballs that you could have are all right here too, which again, is just so freaking cool, man. Like, it's just epic to see. And this has got to be the most, I don't know if I want to say most messed up one, but I think most messed up one is probably the best way to put it. Yes, this is the literal outfits that we wore, okay? These are Survey Corps outfits that we wore back in the game, which would imply that we ain't alive anymore, fellas. Our characters are not alive no more. We have been yeeted from existence, which is extremely disturbing if you really think about it, but hey, at least it's kind of cool to see the reference. And right on the other side, we actually get to see a lot of different items, like, for example, the food we were able to eat in that, like in Arceus, some of the tools we used, and also the crafting table as well. Like, all of that is mentioned. Like, the satchel is mentioned, a satchel that was supplied to members of the Team Galaxy Survey Corps. Should a Survey Corps member be knocked out while conducting a survey, the Security Corps would rescue them and retrieve their satchel. Tales remain of Galaxy Team members who boasted that he could increase the capacity of the satchel so they could hold more items, which, yes, you guys may remember the fella. And then also potato mochi as well, which was prepared. So again, it's just cool to see all these tiny little details. Then we get to see some small details about Jubilee Village itself. We can see some of the items that were sold, some of the stuff around, like, just day-to-day life. Even the actual, like, beach where we end up in the beginning of the game is also right here on the wall. Again, just cool little details. Then there's also a reproduction of the general store from the game, which of course you guys remember where you went to buy items. That's also right here, which is, again, really cool. However, this one is the most interesting, the training ground. See, this is a space where Galaxy Expedition team members honed their skills for battling using Pokemon they caught. It is worth noting that the wild Pokemon were still regarded as terrifying creatures at the time. There are records of a man named Ingo providing guidance in the way of Pokemon battles, but it's said that he simply vanished one day after stating, "It's time for me to return." But it doesn't end there. There's actually an NPC in the games. There's actually an NPC you can find. And this NPC specifically points this out. Like, he actually brings it up and mentions, "Oh, wait a minute, there was this guy, there was this fella, you guys may know this fella, and you may remember him, Ingo and Emmett, and I think these guys, they seem to have returned to the battle train," or whatever it's called. You guys remember from, like, Black and White, that whole train? Well, it's actually back. You guys can see right here. I hear the multi-train and Unova are back up and running. And then someday I'm going to take on Ingo and Emmett on the multi-train. So it seems like he was just able to return back home after the whole ordeal, which is just so insane, which makes me wonder if our character also, like our player character, returned as well. But we don't really know about that for sure. It's just, again, cool little details. We also get to see the shop interiors from, like Arceus, which again is really cool. It's just a bunch of small stuff which just really stands out. But yeah, I just think all this stuff is really sick. Even the house we had and all that sort of stuff, we can even see that, our room, essentially. Just so many cool little references. Then we have a giant three-dimensional map of Lumio City created using holotech, which is right in the center, but right next to it is something way cooler. What we find here is a power plant which uses fire to generate electricity. Because, ladies and gentlemen, as you guys may remember, for whatever reason in X and Y, we were not able to go to the power plant. Like, we were not able to actually approach it. But this is a whole series of paintings of power plants in Kalos. Someone truly loved them, no? But yeah, it seems like these paintings in particular are essentially drawings of what the power plant could have been, what it should have been, or like at least concepts of that, which is really cool because it actually resembles something we have in real life, which are these sort of like, you know, artist interpretations of what the future like way of generating electricity would be like. And these drawings essentially depict exactly that, which is so freaking cool. We also have an entire section that features quite literally every Pokeball, I think, in the entire game, besides maybe like the GS ball. I guess that's not here. But yeah, we have practically every Pokeball like all in one spot, which is also super strange and interesting to see that that's here. And right behind that, we have a drawing that says the factory which makes Pokeballs and ships them all over the Kalos region, the Pokeball factory. This painting is part of a series on technology in Kalos, and the ever-increasing number of Pokeball expresses the artist's desire to be connected to all Pokemon. So again, just an entire section of Pokeballs, which again, I think is cool. If you listen to the actual like cry sound effect for Mega Feraligatr, it kind of sounds like the cry of the original Totodile cry from back in like Gold and Silver. There's also a little kid that makes a direct reference to Leon from, of course, you know, Galar. And apparently he did come to this region and battled here in, I think, even the ZA Real at some point. I think even Jacinthe makes a reference to him, so that's pretty neat. Now, there's also a really cool attention to detail, but when you just start the game right at the train station, it's something that you won't see if you leave, but apparently there is a little sticker on the wall of I think a Bunnelby, which is getting its hand stuck inside of the door as a warning to tell you to not, you know, put your fingers between the door handles, whatever. And interestingly enough, this is an actual thing that is found in the Parisian metro to prevent people from blocking their fingers in the doors. So kind of a cool little detail, like that's even included there. It's just really sick that is there. This is a small that you can easily miss little detail, but the first time we actually see Tawny in this game is actually on the player character's phone, where she's trying to make the advertisement for Team well, actually not Team MZ, but Hotel Z, which is really interesting. So it's not even a coincidence that we meet her. Our character might even just recognize her from looking at her on his phone, on his Rotom phone. But out in the world, you will also find references to old gym leaders on actual posters. You can find Valerie, which if I remember correctly, she was like the fairy type gym leader. She's actually on multiple posters in the game that you can find around these like, I don't know if I want to call them like, I guess little kiosks, right? Little shops. You'll find like next to these a bunch of small little references and things, like a bunch of postcards that feature different Pokemon like Abra, Spinarak, and Molga and whatnot, and even some small stuff at the bottom. I think it's a Charizard picture right down there. So yeah, I mean, especially this one though, of Valerie, because again, no references to where she is exactly. I mean, there's a few probably, but even if you look at the back here, you'll be able to find even more posters referencing different things, probably like different like shows. You actually see like the kid with a bunch of the Phantoms. We also see a few references to baguettes and I mean, you guys should recognize this fellow right here. But yeah, there's a bunch of just cool little small details that can be found, especially in the back here, as you will notice that these aren't on the front. We even see a seemingly like the Grand Prix. You guys remember this from the anime, and also the Grand Prix where we saw Hawlucha fight Machamp in the trailer leading up to this game. But it doesn't end there. There's also what seems to be a weird poster on the back here that shows some kind of clock that almost looks like a... So yeah, Magnemite actually. I think it's a Magnemite, isn't it? Yeah, it's just a little Magnemite one. But yeah, there's a bunch of these references. Some of the kiosks make them easier to see, some of them make them harder to see, but generally speaking, there's a bunch of different posters all over the place that make references to different things. Next is a cool little thing you can do in the game. Now, if you talk to this woman right here called Vivasi, she will actually do a few things for you. She starts a quest, I think side quest number 12, where if you show her a bunch of floettes, she will eventually give you a bunch of special new hairstyles because, I mean, right here you can see. But yeah, she'll give you a new bunch of colors of hairstyles that you normally wouldn't have, specifically because you show her all those floettes, which unlocks her ability and creativity to essentially give you better hairstyles. hairstyles. And this is not the only character. There's another character in the game where if you actually battle them with different kinds of megas, they will unlock different eye colors as well, different lenses for eye colors, and also another character for side quests that unlocks even more hairstyles. So there's a lot of hidden hairstyles in the game that you can do. Hopefully I'll be able to make a video on this, explaining it in full detail how to do these, but it's kind of a cool little side quest that maybe you don't realize at first that you unlock those features, but they are unlocked, and you can just go and check out your character in different, you know, like in different ways, and seeing what they would look like if you just gave them literally different eyes, different everything. Like I cannot even like explain. There's just so many details into what you can do here and how you can change your hair and eye color and everything. There's just so much. Like it's genuinely incredible. Also, maybe you didn't realize it, but the taxis still exist in the game. If you talk to these taxi drivers around the actual map, they will allow you the ability to essentially travel to different locations. I don't know why you would do this. Maybe in case you haven't unlocked certain areas on the map yet, like if your map hasn't perhaps, you know, been fully unlocked in all the locations. But other than that, this makes no sense whatsoever, or why you would do this. It just seems a little redundant, but they are here. Now, if you head back to this one building, the old building, now, interestingly enough, this is where you do one of the quests for the Rust Syndicate, but maybe you didn't pay enough attention, because there is an interesting thing in this room. There's a painting of Laventon. Yeah, I don't know why a painting of him is specifically in this room, and it's a pretty big one too, actually. It's a pretty large one, but it's right here. It's literally right here. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It literally says a portrait of someone who looks like a professor. Painting seems quite old, and that's the only details we get. I'm trying to look through any of the other boxes, and there's not really a lot of details or anything, you know, else to be mentioned. There's no other major stuff that's brought up as we run around here. However, it's just kind of cool to see that that's there. Also just a random green chair, but other than that, not much else is mentioned. We just know that these guys are going to be chilling and living together here. But again, nothing has changed since we last came here in the story. However, it's pretty cool to see at least that there is a, you know, maybe Laventon lived here. Maybe this used to be his home. And maybe he came here after a certain amount of time when Lumio still like was in its early days. Or maybe his ancestors ended up in Lumio's. Who knows? Now, for this next one, there is honestly too many of these to even like bring up all of them, but there are so many references to previous characters from previous games. Everything from the first one here, I'm a dancer and I came to Lumio's chasing my dreams of going pro, plus my big brother. It's hard to keep winning forever. Even the unbeatable Leon was eventually defeated, because there's a reference from him. Who is La Primera? Actually brings out the full potential of any Pokemon. You guys should know that one. Kalo's greatest actress, Diantha, is mentioned too, is back in a new film coming soon. I wonder if that young gym leader has been inventing anything new. Hey, listen, we all know, you know, where actually, wait, you know what, hold up, there isn't actually multiple mentions, I think, of Clement and his sister, but again, we don't actually see them. It's, again, last one here is totally captivating, just like my beloved Iono. So, again, there seems to be a lot of references in this game to other characters. Unfortunately, though, we don't necessarily get to see them in the game, which is a little less, you know, fun. Next up, if you paid attention, at the bottom of these manhole covers, there's actually unique manhole covers around the map. Like currently, if we look at the map, we are in this area, the blue sector, or bleu sector, if you want to call it that. But if you head over to one of the other sectors and we look at the ground, we should be able to see a different kind of, well, in this case, specifically a different kind of manhole cover on the ground. There's a few different other ones. I think one of the ones I've seen is actually, I think a Pyroar one was one of the ones that I've seen before as well. There's loads of them. I think right here we can see, yep, there it is. There's the Pyroar one, and they are different depending on which area you go to. So cool little details again that are in the game that definitely stand out. If you haven't noticed it already, the different Nurse's Joys in this game exist. We have our standard Nurse Joy that, you know, we're kind of used to, but there's also alternative Nurse Joys in the game as well that you can find all around the map, and they also have different demeanors. Some of them are angry, some of them are, you know, happy, some of them are chill. You can even battle Nurse Joy inside of the ZA Royale, which is another cool little detail. But, you know, and even if you beat her, I think she actually heals your Pokemon, which is kind of cool. She actually uses a Mega Audino, if I'm not mistaken. Another cool detail is actually this one like billboard, which shows a Thievul wearing, oddly enough, a specific outfit, and that outfit seems to be a reference to Masters EX. Yes, you guys may know Masters EX. It's of course a game that exists on mobile for Pokemon, and yeah, it seems like this specific skin is being referenced here, which is kind of a neat little detail. There's also the Open Sesame reference being used again to open the lab, Lysander's lab and Team Flare's lab, which again is a reference to XMY, but also, of course, the story of Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, which is a code word used and uttered to open a thieves' cave. So Again, just a lot of cool little details and references. There's also what is being called an Elite Four battle against this woman that uses a shiny Furfrou. Basically, you gotta go through a bunch of people before you fight her, and she's apparently the only character with a shiny Furfrou, I think, in this game. Inside of the actual lab as well, there are a few little references with like some cool drawings and stuff of different Pokemon in the opening section, like the bottom floor. However, there's even more stuff if you go further up, right? You can obviously see a few different things, like the Aegislash in the back and the, I guess, old version of the actual lab in the back here. There's no way to actually access it, which is a bit unfortunate. However, if we go up to the other floors, there are more images. So on the second floor where the laboratory is, there is several more characters, including, of course, the character you gotta go talk to if you want to exchange your fossils, which you buy at the Stone Emporium. These ones you can just restore into actual like fossil Pokemon. If we just talk to this guy, we can actually show him one of the fossils and he'll be able to restore them. So the Jaw, Sail, and Old Amber. And also, when you do restore these Pokemon, they have a chance of being a shiny or even being an alpha Pokemon. However, that's not the only thing in the lab. There are a few more things. Like, for example, in the back here, there's a lantern being investigated, which has made a lot of people think like, oh, does this maybe imply we're potentially gonna get some form of lantern mega? But I kind of doubt that's the case. There's also a bunch of floating Pokeballs, which we get no explanation for, and a few bits of like data points all around here. We got Mega Garchomp being, you know, investigated in the back here as well. But yeah, just small little details that they've left around the entire lab to give it a little bit more pizzazz and make it feel a little bit more, I would say, alive, almost, like give it a little bit more purpose in some sense, which I think honestly fits really well. Like, I think it's important to include little details that make the area feel better. But then there's of course the big detail, which is up on the top floor in the director's office. We have pictures of course, our good old friend Sycamore. Yes, Professor Sycamore is here. We see him with Chespin and with a Garchomp, so it makes me also wonder if the diagrams down below were probably his diagrams as well, potentially. There are a few books around, but you cannot interact with those. However, there's at least a decent amount of interesting little details around here that I think are worth exploring and just looking into. Now, I can't go through all the side quests and all that sort of stuff. There's literally so many. That's an entire video on its own as well. However, there is some stuff about, like, I guess kind of post-game side questy, which is if you do the Infinite ZA Royale and you do it 15 times, eventually you will fight Urbane or Tawny, and at the end of that, you are going to be given AZ's Floette, which is really cool, and also AZ Floette's Mega Stone, so it can Mega Evolve, so that's pretty neat. And speaking of, you know, epic things like that, we do also have 3 legendaries you can get in this game. There's a side quest to get Yveltal, a side quest to get Cernius, and a side quest to get Zygarde, and its Mega Stone is given to you in the story, so you can Mega Evolve it too, which is pretty neat. And then, of course, there is another reference. If you guys have traveled straight down to, of course, Lumio's Tower at the end of the game, you will notice something very interesting. Lumio's Tower has now changed, and the way it looks is actually reminiscent to the actual Eiffel Tower. Now, we know that, of course, Lumio City is based on Paris, where the Eiffel Tower is located, but Lumio's Tower always kind of had like a more futuristic look to it. However, now, with the destruction of it at the hands of, you know, the main plot and all that sort of stuff, and Ange and all that, it now looks just like the actual Eiffel Tower. It's metallic, it is rusted, and it's green, and it's more gorgeous, I would actually say, than just a giant techno mumbo jumbo looking building. It's actually more beautiful now. But yeah. Another little Easter egg, which you guys may have not noticed in the game, is when you're about to choose one of your starter Pokemon, you actually have the option of walking up to Pancham and choosing him. Except, not really. I mean, you can try to choose him, but his trainer's gonna be like, no, you don't get to take him. No, mister, you don't get to take my Pancham. So yeah, it is an option, kind of ish in the game, but nothing really happens. It's just kind of like, it's funny that they gave the option. I think it's cool because, you know, for a fact, somebody was going to try it. Also, the museum isn't the only place that has a lot of different paintings. If you guys look around the hotel in Hotel Z, specifically, you'll find lots of different things like this little phantom, as well as other paintings, like the one over here of the city itself with the tower in the back. And of course, we got, you know, a little Floette just chilling over here, looking at quite literally a painting of itself. Eco much, I don't know, Chief. But yes, you can see that. However, if we go up to the next floor, we will find something interesting in our bedroom. You see, in our bedroom, there are a few more paintings that we've obviously already seen in a different amount of locations. However, there's one right at the back here. Now, this one is apparently unique in this game. No more of it show up, and it's supposed to represent Yggdrasil, or the World Tree. You guys may already know that this entire game in X and Y for the legendaries uses Norse mythology and the World Tree of Yggdrasil as its basis. So most likely, that is what it's supposed to hint at right there. Essentially, this is the World Tree, and we have more or less conquered it at this point. I mean, we got all the Pokemon that are related to it, like all the legendaries with Zygarde, Vettel, Xerneas, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just a cool little detail. If you max out all of the colorful rainbow screws that you give over to the people over at Kanari's little company, well, if you max out all the different levels for the different plushes of Kanari, eventually the worker will tell you, hey, I've brought something for you in your Hotel Z room. So if you head back to the Hotel Z room, in the corner, we will find a massive Kanari plushie. So yeah, it's a cool little detail that you can easily look over if you don't max out all the plushies, which of course give you bonuses in the game. All right, that's it. Bye-bye.